Welcome back to Chessbox Worldwide, where the board is a battlefield and the upsets are legendary. Tonight, we take you to the Zabasajja Memorial Chess Championship for a fight that defied the ratings. In one corner, playing white, is the experienced Arena International Master Abdul Shakuru Wagodo, who plays for Gambit Chess Club in the National Chess League, and his opponent, with the black pieces, is the sharp and dangerous Ssenabulya Sharif, who plays for CNA Chess Club in the National Chess League. With a significant rating advantage, the Arena International Master title to his name, Wagodo Abdul Shakuru was the clear favorite, but in chess, titles mean nothing once the clock starts. Watch as Sharif unleashes a vicious King Indian style attack against the bird's opening. Get ready for pure tactical devastation. This game is an absolute must-see, culminating in a jaw-dropping sequence of checks and sacrifices that forces the Arena International Master to resign in just 23 moves. Hit that like button, subscribe Chessbox Worldwide, let's witness the stunning power of Ssenabulya Sharif's victory. And in the white pieces, Arena International Master Wagodo Abdul Shakuru opened the game with f4, the bird's opening. We see d5 from Ssenabulya Sharif, knight f3, knight f6, e3, g6, d4, bishop comes to g7, bishop d3, bishop g4, pinning the knight and plan to go ahead to go e6, short castling, knight d7, knight comes to d2, and in this position, Senna best went on and played e6. But however, c5 should have been considered, and in case of h3, we could have seen bishop takes f3, queen takes f3. In case of c4, bishop e2, knight comes to c6, and after c3, this would be a better position to play as black. After knight d2, he played e6, c3, knight comes to d7, and in this position, Arena International Master went in for short castling. But however, b4 should have been considered, and in case of f5, we could have seen short castling, and in case of a takes b4, c takes b4, queen comes to e7, hitting on the pawn, queen b3, short castling, followed by f4. Let's go back. After knight d7, he played short castling. Senna best also went and played short castling. h3, hitting on the bishop, bishop 5, the best move, and in this position, bishop e2 should have been considered, but he played bishop takes f5. For example, in case of bishop e2, we could have seen c5, and after g4, hitting on the bishop, bishop comes to e4, knight e5, queen comes to c7, and then f4. But however, after bishop f5, he played bishop takes f5, pawn takes f5, opening up for the column towards the king, because now Senna best is going to be using this column to attack the white king. Knight comes to e5, Senna best went and played knight e4. But however, knight takes e5 should have been considered, and after pawn takes e5, knight comes to e4, and after knight takes e4, d takes e4, queen comes to e2, queen e7, bishop comes to d2, rook comes to d8, and after rook comes to d1, rook d3, c4, case of rook comes to d8, bishop c3. But however, after knight e5, he played knight e4. Arena International Master Wagodo Abdul Shakuru played knight takes e4, d takes e4. In this position, he went on and played bishop d2. Knight takes d7 should have been considered, and in case of queen takes d7, bishop d2, queen b5, b4, queen d3, rook comes to c1, f5, f4, c6 with a promising position. But however, after pawn takes e4, he played bishop d2. Senna based on and played knight b6. But however, knight takes e5 should have been considered, and in case of f takes e5, king would come to h8, king h1, planning to bring the rook and take control of the open file. But however, after bishop d2, he played knight b6, queen comes to e2, king h8, queen f5, hitting on the pawn which is here on f7, bishop takes e5, removing the threat, pawn takes e5, and now we see rook g8, giving up the pawn on f7 and planning to bring the rook on g6, of which king h2 should have been considered. For example, after king h2, in case of rook g6, b3, cutting off all the potential squares of the knight, and this would be a playable game. But however, after rook g8, he played queen takes f7, and in this position, Ssenabulya removed the mask, and he played rook g6. And in this position, still, rook comes to e1 should have been considered, trying to mobilize all the pieces. Arena International Master and played b3. But however, rook comes to e1 should have been considered. For example, after rook e1, we could have seen queen g5, and after rook f2, rook g8, rook e2, with a furthermore playable position. But however, after rook g6, he played b3, and in this position, Senna best removed the mask and played queen g5, threatening checkmate in 1. We see rook f2 defending against the mate, and in this position, he played rook g8, adding more firepower on the pawn which is on g2. and in this position Shakur played c4, queen g3, intending to go ahead and take the pawn. Rook e1 should have been tried. After queen g3, Shakur played king f1, and in this position, ladies and gentlemen, Ssenabulya Sharif, all the way from CNHS club, removed the mask and he played queen takes f2, sacrificing the queen, and Shakur had no other option. He took the queen. King takes f2, and in this position, Ssenabulya had checkmate in 3. He played rook takes g2 check, and after king e1, it was in this position that Arena International Master Wagodo Abdul Shakuru, all the way from Gambit Chess Club, resigned the game because of after rook g1 check, king comes to e2, rook g2 check would be checkmate. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of luck in your games.